Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you today with X-Force number 5. And one thing I gotta say about comic collecting, like especially during this era, is I miss when you get together with your buddies and they say, hey, did you read the latest issue of X-Force or X-Factor or X-Men or Batman? And you'd be like, no, what happened? And you guys would sit there and you'd exchange stories and you're like, oh, dude, that sounds cool. And then you'd actually, because, you were younger, say, can I borrow it? Or, at the time where we grew up, the comic shops were sporadic. They'd open, they'd close. They'd open, they'd close. It was so frustrating. But whenever they were open, you'd say, hey, man, do you think your mom could take you to the comic shop? And so that's how we do our weekends. But now what kind of kills me is, you talk about some of these comics nowadays, and this isn't all the time, but just some of the times I've come across it, people be like, well, that's not worth much. Who cares? And I'm just thinking, well, I don't know. Maybe it's just when you get older, yes, you want your collectible comics because, they're valuable. But I'm more about quality storytelling over the, value of a rare book. Because there's times where, there's like the first appearance or this first event, and then I'll read it. And it's very much just a story. So, with that said, this was an awesome story building up to something very cool. Now, the print date on this was December 1991, and we open up on everybody's favorite Merc with the Mouth, Deadpool. And, he's just saying, yoo-hoo, Tolliver, I'm home. Just flew in from New York, and the boys are my arms tired. And as you can see here, he goes, here they are, signed, sealed, and delivered. Kane Marco the Juggernaut to Black Tom Cassidy, would-be terrorists. So he's working for this guy, and we're not 100% sure, what he looks like other than his name is Tolliver. Now, this is the way I missed Deadpool. And this is how Liefeld originally had Deadpool, and Nikezia had Deadpool sort of laid out where he was sarcastic, but he wasn't like, LOL, so random, talking ponies, MySpace. That's not Deadpool. Deadpool was very much like, I'm going to make a joke and then I'm going to stab you in the face. And that's kind of the same thing with DC's Harley Quinn, where, she was flirty, she could be quirky, but if you made her mad, she'd smash your face in, and not the holy whack-a-mole blaza-noe dooey mooey. But anyway, that's for another comic. But anyway, that's where I wanted to kind of point out that this old-school Deadpool, man, do I miss him. And the reason I'm saying that there's a lot of buildup is that's the only page we really get with Deadpool. And that's what I really appreciate about X-Force is they sparingly used Deadpool. So you're just kind of like, well, what's going to happen with him next? And who's the shadowed figure he's working for? And then at first I didn't know who this cat was. He's talking about how his life is perfect. He's like, everything that everyone takes for granted is what I live for. And he even says, every day I breathe the foul air and smile because each breath is the freshest I've ever taken. And then you come to find out, and this way, there's this calm moment here after this whole build-up with Deadpool, and then we just talk about this guy, how he lives for the mundane because he never had that before, and then boom, his sins come back to haunt him because you come to find out that this is Karl Lycos. And for those of you that don't know who Karl Lycos is, that is Sauron, who lives, sucks the life force out of people in order to feed. He feeds on the life force of mutants. And have I never seen Toad? Well, maybe one other time in Generation X, but I've never seen Toad look menacing before. So I thought that was really cool. Then you got Blob there lingering in the background, and that's just really great paneling. I enjoy that very much by the art team here. And Lycos, for me, he always reminds me of other kind of tragic characters like Kirk Langstrom, who is a Man-Bat, and Dr. Kirk Connors, who's the Lizard, who, they have this other beast side of them. They can't seem to get a break from it. It always comes back to haunt them. Now, this is called Under the Magnifying Glass. And this is Rob Liefeld doing the plot and the art. And then Fabian Nikezia, words and insomnia. Chris Eolopoulos doing the letters and allergies, which I can definitely relate to on that. Murray and, I'm so sorry if I brutalized this, Witter Statter, colors and flat feet. Bob Harris edits and hangnails. Tom DeFalco, oil and vinegar. And see, this is what I miss too. And I've said this so many times, but I miss when the creative team would actually kind of joke around with the fans in the books like that. So anyway, with that said, again, I told you this is a build-up issue. So, you start to build up things with Deadpool. You start to build up things with Lycos, because at this point, Lycos, I guess, was able to suppress Sauron, which I don't know which issue that was. If you guys know, let me know down in the comments. But Toad wants to start another brotherhood that is mutant superiority. And I like here he goes, you see, there are just far too many factions currently in operation. Everyone putting an X in front of their names. And Magneto with his sad delusions of nobility. And Homo sapiens, well, just take the paramilitary anti-mutant state of Genosha as an example, using our people as enforced labor, an injustice that cries out for vengeance. I need you, Karl Lycos. I need you to join me in fulfilling my dream. I want to read this part to you guys. He goes, a dream where mutants can rule in superiority over the subspecies, which has dogged our evolutionary advance for far too long. Join us, Dr. Lycos. Let your friend Sauron come out to play with the new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Now let's pause there. So at first I thought I had to laugh at the meta-ness where they were saying that there's too many X-Faction teams, because at this point they'd had X-Men, X-Factor, X-Force, and before that was New Mutants. And those were the only mutant teams at this time that I'm aware of. And so that was kind of a joke. I really liked that. But then as you start to, being in the modern times, you start to read what Toad wants to do. And is it just me, or does anybody else think that sounds dangerously close to like the modern day thesis of Krakoa? So that's why when I read these newer X-Men books, I'm just kind of like, okay. But anyway, with that said, let's not think about modern day X books, and let's just move on, shall we? As the wind decides to push the pages around. Now, last issue. What are the names? Black Tom, Cassidy, and Juggernaut were trying to ransom the World Trade Center. Gideon and Robert DaCosta, who is Sunspot, who's kind of at this point Gideon's mentor per se, but he has other machinations for Robert. X-Force and Spider-Man come in to save the day, and then Deadpool disappears with Juggernaut and Black Tom. Well, Gideon, having these other plans, on public television throws X-Force under the bus and says that they're a menace and that they're no better than like Magneto, etc., and so forth. And so Sam and Tabitha are livid, because even though they're working with Cable, and Cable's a little more paramilitary because the future he comes from, he's just saying that this is something that we just got to work with. And Bobby and Tabitha, who's Boom Boom, are just not really rolling with it. And so they're talking about how, what's his name? Bridges, who's this military guy who knows Cable, but now he's hunting him for S.H.I.E.L.D. And Cable's like, me and him have a past. And he goes, hey, I don't care. And I love Tabitha because she always off with the mouth. She goes, hey, I don't care if he's your sister wearing a tutu and spoon-feeding you tapioca. Tapioca. He wants your hide, Cable, and I'm assuming as a result, ours too. And what I like, which this is non-Domino, because everyone thought this was Domino, but her first appearance isn't until later, so, God, I can't remember. What was her name? It was a shapeshifter. Let me know down in the comments who this is supposed to be, but it's fake Domino. She goes, maybe nothing, Boom Boom. Think of what our new rep will do to our opponents. Which she's trying to say strike fear, because now it's like Menace is going after Menaces. And she's like, we've been turned into public enemy number one out there. And she's like, how is she? Oh, here we go. What can we do to stop mutant menaces if we're considered one ourselves? And so Cable just wants to run with it. And Sam and Tabitha are not real happy about it. But we're going to go ahead and skip past that because there's this whole thing brewing with them. And then after all this buildup, we're like, oh, I can see where things are starting to go. We get these quiet moments with other members of X-Force, which at this point we get Warpath. And check it out, what he's kind of thinking about in here, like his inner turmoil and inner dialogue is really, really interesting. And then we jump over to Shatterstar, and at first I thought this was Shatterstar. I was like, why is he thinking in the third person? But there's someone talking there, like this is his third workout today. Now what I like is the person says, I'm faster than he is, but he's stronger, more determined. What a waste of perfectly good energy. Now, I don't want to give away the rest of what that's about, but you come to find out that it's Feral. And Shatterstar is not real happy, but there's something brewing between these two. He's like, you dared watch my training? Yep, I like watching you sweat, Shatty Buns. Shatty Buns. I couldn't help it. That just really made me laugh. Oh. So yeah, I can't wait to dive into the next issues to see where the stuff between Shatterstar and Feral go, because yeah, she has a thing for him, and it's fun. It's fun to read. And then, if you guys are wondering why Siren's all of a sudden with the X-Force, check out X Factor number 70. We've gone over that, so go ahead and check that review out. Pause this one, go check that out, and then come back. Okay, and you're back. And then also there's something that the Shadow King did to her in Uncanny X-Men 270 through 280. I'm going to have to go back and reread that, because I remember during that time there was a lot of stuff going on with Muir Island. There was a lot going on with David Haller, and Forge had his own like little band of X-Men at the time, because the other X-Men were still presumed dead in the Australian outback. So a whole lot going on there. So I'm going to have to go back, reread them, and hopefully get a review of that. But this is kind of where she joins X-Force. And she's still one of my favorite characters. Her and Banshee both, even though in the another, father and daughter. Great stuff going on there. And then we get some more stuff with Bridges, where he's kind of trying to work the political angle with Geinrich and Nick Fury and Val Cooper, who is the sponsor of X Factor. And it's really interesting back and forth, and some more plot stuff that I don't want to give away. But needless to say, we get back to Lycos and Toad and Blob, and it's really heart-wrenching here what happens. So I don't want to give any more of this comic book away. Just, again, I love how there's still like an overarching thing where we get, like the whole focus is bringing Sauron back. It even says here, the Brotherhood Reborn, which I really love. I'm not sure who that character is, but I like how Pyro and Toad and Blob and Sauron are very prominent. If you guys can remember who this is, let me know, because I cannot remember for the life of me. But while we're getting that, we still have some quiet moments with the characters, and we're just in other things, we're starting to see this powder keg starting to happen. And it just really makes for great reading overall. So if you guys have enjoyed this comic book, please first and foremost check with your local comic shop and see if they have a copy. I found this one at mine, so I'm sure you could probably find it, because again, it's not valuable in any way, but nonetheless, in terms of like reading, you're going to get a lot of quality for your buck. I promise you on that. And if you've enjoyed this review, we'd really appreciate it if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you can possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little X bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys will get notified and come to the channel. We'd love to hear your feedback and have a dialogue with y'all down in the comments below, or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description below. So with all that said, thank y'all so much for stopping by and checking out the review. I hope y'all have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.